I was 34 when my world came crashing down. One day I was Raphael Peterson, respected software developer from Boston, with a beautiful wife, Sophia, and a close relationship with her family. The next I was a social pariah, my name forever tainted by a horrible accusation. My sister-in-law, Natalie, never seemed to like me, but I never thought she would go so far as to falsely accuse me of sexual assault after that Thanksgiving dinner in 2021. One lie was all it took to destroy everything I had built. Before I share how I fought back and finally got justice 2 years later, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever been wrongfully accused of something you did not do. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Massachusetts, the son of hardworking parents, who instilled in me the values of honesty and perseverance. After graduating high school with honors, I worked my way through college, taking on multiple jobs to cover tuition while maintaining my GPA. Those years taught me that nothing worthwhile comes easy, a lesson that would later become my lifeline. By the time I turned 30, I had established myself as a competent software developer, with a promising career ahead. I worked for a respected tech company in Boston, creating applications that helped businesses streamline their operations. My colleagues respected me, and my superiors saw potential in my work. Life was good, but something was missing. That something walked into my life during a tech conference in Chicago. Sophia Martinez was presenting her research on user interface design when our eyes met across the crowded auditorium. There was an immediate connection, something intangible, yet powerful, that drew us together. After her presentation, I gathered the courage to introduce myself. We ended up talking for hours at the hotel bar, discovering our shared love for obscure indie films, hiking in autumn, and dreams of one day starting our own tech company. Our relationship progressed naturally, like we were two puzzle pieces that had finally found their match. We dated long distance for 6 months, before Sophia accepted a position at a company in Boston. A year later, I proposed during a sunrise hike at Mount Greylock. Her tearful yes was the happiest moment of my life. Our wedding 3 years ago was intimate, but beautiful. Sophia looked breathtaking in her cream-colored dress as she walked down the aisle. Her family seemed genuinely happy for us. Her father, David, gave a touching speech about welcoming me into their family. Her mother, Maria, hugged me with tears in her eyes and told me she was grateful her daughter had found someone who truly cherished her. Even Sophia's siblings, her brother James and her sister Natalie, appeared supportive, though looking back there were signs I should have noticed. After the wedding, Sophia and I bought our first home together, a charming colonial with a backyard large enough for the family we hoped to start. We established weekend traditions: Saturday morning farmers market visits, Sunday brunches with friends, and movie nights, where we would take turns selecting films. We were planning to start trying for a baby once Sophia received the promotion she had been working toward. Everything seemed perfect on the surface. My relationship with Sophia's family evolved over those early years of marriage. David and Maria treated me like a son, always including me in family decisions and traditions. James and I bonded over our shared interest in baseball, often catching Red Sox games together. His wife Diana was sweet and welcoming, always bringing homemade cookies when they visited. But then there was Natalie. From the beginning, something felt off about our interactions. While never openly hostile, she had a way of making me feel unwelcome with subtle jabs and backhanded compliments. At family gatherings, she would roll her eyes whenever I spoke, as if everything I said was somehow offensive or boring. She frequently brought up Taylor, Sophia's college boyfriend, reminiscing about what a perfect match they had been and how unfortunate it was that they broke up. When Sophia would defend me or change the subject, Natalie would quickly say she was just joking and that I needed to lighten up. I tried everything to win her over. I remembered her birthday with thoughtful gifts. I offered help when she moved to a new apartment. I even defended her when she got into arguments with other family members. Nothing seemed to change her attitude toward me. Still, I maintained a polite relationship for Sophia's sake, never wanting to cause friction in her family. Thanksgiving 2021 seemed like any other family holiday at first. We gathered at David and Maria's spacious home, the air filled with the aroma of roasting turkey and pumpkin pie. Everyone was in good spirits, catching up and enjoying each other's company. I noticed Natalie was quieter than usual, constantly checking her phone and disappearing for brief periods. When Maria asked for help in the kitchen, I volunteered alongside Natalie, hoping some cooperative work might ease the tension between us. While the rest of the family watched football in the living room, Natalie and I prepared side dishes and set the table. Our conversation was stilted but civil, just awkward small talk about the weather and her new job. Nothing unusual happened, though. I did notice her texting frequently, holding the phone close to her chest, as if hiding the screen from view. Dinner itself was pleasant. We all shared what we were thankful for. I mentioned my wonderful wife and the welcoming family I had married into a statement that caused Natalie to stare intently at her plate. Still, everyone left on seemingly good terms, with hugs and promises to get together for Christmas. I had no idea that in just 48 hours my entire life would be torn apart. The phone call came on Saturday morning as Sophia and I were enjoying coffee on our porch. When she answered, her expression immediately changed. I watched helplessly as the color drained from her face, her hand beginning to tremble. After a few minutes of mostly listening, she hung up and turned to me with eyes that no longer held the warmth I was accustomed to. "That was Mom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Natalie told them something happened at Thanksgiving. Something between you two in the kitchen." Confused, I asked what she meant. "She says you touched her, Raphael, inappropriately, while everyone was in the next room watching football." Her voice cracked. "She says you cornered her by the pantry and... The accusation hit me like a physical blow. I felt my stomach drop and my heart race. Nothing like that had happened. Nothing even remotely inappropriate had occurred. "That is absolutely not true," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "We barely spoke in the kitchen. You know how she feels about me. This is insane." "Sophia." Sophia nodded slowly, but I could already see doubt clouding her eyes. "I know you two have never gotten along, but why would she make something like this up? It is such a serious accusation." That question, why would someone fabricate such a destructive lie, became the foundation of my nightmare. Because people believed there had to be some truth to such serious allegations. Because nobody could imagine someone would completely invent something so damaging without reason. The next 48 hours brought an avalanche of hostility. David called, his voice cold and threatening, demanding an explanation for violating his daughter's trust and safety. James left voicemails promising to make me pay if he ever saw me again. Extended family members and mutual friends began reaching out to Sophia, offering support and condemning my actions before even hearing my side. Most painful was watching Sophia's faith in me crumble. That first night, she slept in our guest room. By the second night, she had packed an overnight bag, saying she needed space to think. I could see her wrestling with her thoughts, wanting to believe me, but unable to imagine her sister creating such a devastating lie. After 3 days of this growing nightmare, Sophia suggested a family meeting to clear the air. I eagerly agreed, believing that face-to-face I could convince everyone of my innocence. This was my first major mistake. Walking into her parents' house that evening felt like entering an ambush. They sat arranged in the living room like a tribunal: David, Maria, James, Diana, and Natalie. Sophia led me in, and then took a seat apart from me. The physical distance between us mirrored the emotional gulf that had opened. We thought it would be best to address this directly. David began, his normally friendly face now stern and unfamiliar. "Natalie has shared everything with us, and we need to hear your side." Before I could speak, Natalie launched into a detailed account of events that never happened. How I had cornered her in the kitchen, made suggestive comments about her appearance, and touched her waist and hip inappropriately. She claimed she had been too shocked and afraid to say anything at the time. When I began to refute her claims, she interrupted with more accusations. Apparent incidents from previous family gatherings, comments I never made, glances that never happened, touches that existed only in her imagination. With each fabricated detail, I watched my in-laws' expressions harden further against me. "This is not the first time," Natalie said tearfully. "I did not want to cause problems in the family, so I kept quiet before. But after Thanksgiving, I cannot stay silent anymore." "That is completely untrue," I responded, struggling to keep my voice level. "None of this happened. Not on Thanksgiving, not ever. Sophia, you know me. You know I would never do something like this." I looked to my wife, hoping to see some recognition of the truth in her eyes. Instead, she stared at the floor and whispered the words that cut deeper than any others: "I do not know what to believe anymore." The meeting ended, with nothing resolved. As we drove home in silence, I realized that in their minds, I was already guilty. The presumption of innocence, a cornerstone of actual justice, had no place in this family tribunal. The destruction of my life accelerated from there. Natalie began posting vague but pointed statements on social media about predators hiding in plain sight and family members who betray trust. Though she never named me directly, she tagged mutual friends and family members, ensuring everyone knew exactly who she meant. Our social circle fractured almost immediately. Friends we had known for years stopped returning calls. Invitations ceased. People crossed the street to avoid talking to me. The whispers and stares followed me everywhere. A week after the family meeting, Sophia announced she was moving in with her parents until things got sorted out. When I asked what needed sorting given that I was innocent, she just shook her head and said she needed time. The professional fallout came next. My boss called me into his office, his expression grave. Someone he would not say who had contacted the company with concerns about my character. Though no formal complaint had been filed, the company placed me on administrative leave pending an investigation. The message was clear: guilty, until proven innocent. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, Sophia filed for legal separation. I received the papers at my office while cleaning out my desk. The timing seemed deliberately cruel, a final twist of the knife. The stress took a physical toll. I lost 30 pounds in 2 months. Sleep became elusive, replaced by endless loops of imagined conversations, where I somehow found the perfect words to make everyone believe the truth. My doctor prescribed anxiety medication that left me foggy and disconnected. With bills mounting and no income, I was forced to sell our dream home in a rushed transaction that cost us significant equity. I moved to a small one-bedroom apartment across town, surrounded by boxes of a life that no longer existed. One night, sitting alone on my balcony, in the bitter January cold, I contemplated ending it all. The thought of leaning just a little farther over the railing briefly seemed like the only escape from the unrelenting nightmare. But something stopped me. Perhaps the stubborn belief that the truth had to matter eventually, or maybe just the raw human instinct to survive despite everything. Whatever it was, it became the turning point. If I gave up, the lie would become my legacy. I could not let that happen. The next morning, I called Anthony Henderson, my college roommate who had become an attorney specializing in defamation cases. We had drifted apart over the years, but he responded immediately to my desperate message. Over coffee at a diner far from my usual haunts, I told him everything. Unlike everyone else in my life, recently he listened without judgment, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. "This is going to be a long road," he said finally. "False accusations are notoriously difficult to disprove because you are trying to prove a negative, but there are ways to fight back. We need to gather evidence. Be patient and prepare for this to get worse before it gets better." "Worse?" I asked, unable to imagine how things could deteriorate further. People do not like to admit they were wrong, especially about something this serious. When you start fighting back, Natalie will likely double down. Her family may become even more hostile. "Are you prepared for that?" I nodded slowly. "I have already lost everything. All I have left is the truth." Anthony helped me develop a systematic approach to rebuilding my case. First, we gathered all communications between Natalie and me, text messages, emails, social media interactions that might show her long-standing animosity. We found several instances where she had made subtly hostile comments, providing context for a potential motive. Next came a breakthrough I had not anticipated. My former next-door neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Calloway, had a security camera covering her front porch that also captured part of the street. Reviewing the footage from Thanksgiving, we found clear images of Sophia and me leaving her parents' house at exactly 7:27 p.m., the precise time Natalie claimed I was assaulting her in the kitchen. It was not definitive proof, but it created a significant timeline discrepancy in her story. We also located witnesses who had observed interactions between Natalie and me at Thanksgiving. Maria's cousin Ruth recalled seeing us working together in the kitchen and described the atmosphere as awkward, but completely normal. David's brother mentioned overhearing Natalie on the phone in the backyard, saying something about taking care of the problem once and for all. Most shocking was what Anthony discovered through his legal connections. Natalie had made similar accusations against a former boss 3 years earlier, allegations that were withdrawn after inconsistencies emerged in her account. The company had settled quietly to avoid publicity, and the records were sealed, but Anthony had a colleague who remembered the case. With mounting evidence in hand, we filed a defamation lawsuit against Natalie in April, nearly 5 months after the false accusation. The legal filing detailed the damage to my reputation, career, and personal life resulting from her malicious lies. Natalie's response was swift and aggressive. She countersued, claiming emotional distress and reputational damage from my attempts to silence a victim. The case attracted local media attention with headlines that still presumed my guilt. Accused assaulter sues victim in controversial case. The financial strain became almost unbearable. Legal fees depleted my savings, and finding new employment proved impossible with the lawsuit hanging over me. I took whatever freelance coding work I could find, often working through the night to meet deadlines, after spending days preparing for the case. The loneliness was perhaps the hardest part. Holidays passed in painful solitude. On what would have been our 4th wedding anniversary, I sat alone in my apartment looking at photos from happier times, wondering if I would ever reclaim any semblance of that life. Then came an unexpected ally. One rainy evening in June, almost 7 months after the accusation, I received a text from an unknown number. I need to talk to you about Natalie. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., at Riverside Park. Come alone. With Anthony's cautious blessing, I went to the meeting spot. There, sitting on a bench overlooking the Charles River, was Diana James's wife and Natalie's sister-in-law. She was nervous, constantly looking over her shoulder, as if expecting to be discovered. I should not be here, she said immediately. If James or anyone in the family knew I was talking to you. Why are you here? I asked, maintaining my distance to make her feel safe. Diana took a deep breath. Because what Natalie is doing is wrong. I have had doubts about her story from the beginning, but last week at Maria's birthday party, Natalie had too much wine. She said something that confirmed what I suspected. According to Diana, a drunk Natalie had bragged about finally getting rid of Raphael and making space for Taylor to come back. When Diana had expressed shock, Natalie backtracked, claiming she was just joking. I know it is not much, Diana said, but I thought you should know. I cannot publicly support you. James would never forgive me, but I could not stay silent either. I thanked her for her courage, but pressed further. Would you be willing to make a statement, even anonymously? It could make a real difference. She hesitated, torn between family loyalty and her sense of justice. Let me think about it. This is hard for me too. Over the next few weeks, Diana became a crucial secret informant. She provided text messages where Natalie had expressed jealousy over Sophia's perfect marriage and resentment toward me for taking her sister away. Most damning was a text Natalie had sent the morning after Thanksgiving. The plan is in motion. He will not know what hit him. With Diana's help, we also discovered deleted social media posts where Natalie had interacted extensively with Taylor, Sophia's ex-boyfriend. Comments like "she was happier with you," and "some mistakes can be fixed," painted a disturbing picture of her intentions. Then came the bombshell that connected all the pieces. Through mutual friends, we confirmed that Natalie had been secretly seeing Taylor for at least 6 months before the accusation. Their relationship had begun around the time Taylor moved back to Boston after a job transfer. The theory became clear. Natalie wanted to break up my marriage to clear the way for Taylor to reconnect with Sophia. Whether Taylor was complicit remained unclear, but his sudden reappearance in Sophia's life after our separation, offering support during this difficult time, suggested at least opportunism, if not outright collaboration. As our court date approached in October 2023, nearly 2 years after the initial accusation, Natalie's attorney pushed aggressively for a settlement. They offered to drop the countersuit if I would withdraw my case and sign a non-disclosure agreement. "This is a good sign," Anthony said. "They are scared of what will come out in court." "I am not interested in settling," I replied firmly. "I want the truth on public record. I want my name cleared completely." The night before court, I barely slept, my mind racing through all possible scenarios. Would the judge believe me? Would Diana actually testify? Would Natalie break down under questioning or maintain her lies? After everything I had lost, this court appearance represented my only chance at reclaiming some semblance of my former life. Not the marriage or even the friendships, but at least my reputation and the truth of who I was. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, intimate in a way that made the proceedings feel even more intense. Natalie sat with her attorney, occasionally dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, a performance I had come to recognize. Sophia was not present, having declined to testify for either side, a neutrality that still stung deeply. The judge, an older woman with penetrating eyes and a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, listened carefully as both attorneys made their opening statements. Anthony presented me as the victim of a malicious lie that had destroyed my career, marriage, and reputation. Natalie's lawyer painted her as a traumatized victim being further victimized by my lawsuit. When Natalie took the stand, she recounted her fabricated story with practiced emotion, but Anthony's cross-examination gradually exposed the inconsistencies. He methodically walked through the timeline using the security footage to show she had lied about when the alleged assault occurred. He presented text messages showing her long-standing hostility toward me. With each question, her confident facade cracked further. "Miss Martinez," Anthony said calmly, "can you explain why the morning after Thanksgiving you texted your friend saying, 'The plan is in motion, he will not know what hit him'?" "What plan were you referring to?" Natalie faltered. "That was about a surprise party we were planning. A surprise party in November for whom your sister's birthday is in March. Your brother's is in August. I do not remember exactly. It was a long time ago." The pivotal moment came when Diana took the stand. Despite visible nervousness, she testified clearly about Natalie's drunken confession and her relationship with Taylor. She provided text messages and described conversations that revealed the calculated nature of Natalie's accusations. She told me she wanted to make things right by getting Sophia back with Taylor. Diana testified. When I asked how she planned to do that with Raphael in the picture, she just smiled and said, "Problems have solutions." When my turn came to testify, I spoke directly and honestly about the devastating impact of Natalie's lies. I described losing my job, my home, my marriage, and my reputation. I explained the depression and suicidal thoughts that had plagued me. And I reiterated under oath that I had never behaved inappropriately toward Natalie or anyone else. After 3 grueling days of testimony, the judge delivered her ruling. In clear, unequivocal terms, she found in my favor, stating that the evidence overwhelmingly supports that Miss Martinez fabricated these serious allegations with malicious intent to cause harm. She awarded me significant damages and issued a court order requiring Natalie to make a public retraction of her accusations. The vindication was powerful but bittersweet. No financial award could restore the 2 years I had lost or fully repair the damage to my name. Still, as I left the courthouse that day, I felt a weight lift. The truth finally was a matter of public record. The aftermath brought a cascade of reconnections and apologies. Sophia was the first reaching out the day after the verdict with a tearful phone call. "I should have believed you," she said, her voice breaking. "I let my family influence me, instead of trusting what I knew about you. Can we talk in person?" We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop, where we had spent many happy hours early in our relationship. She looked both familiar and like a stranger, still beautiful but now representing a life that seemed to belong to someone else. "I am so sorry, Raphael," she said, reaching for my hand across the table. "I failed you when you needed me most. I do not expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know how deeply I regret what happened." I had imagined this moment countless times during my darkest days, sometimes with fury, sometimes with longing. The reality was more complicated than either emotion. "I understand why you doubted," I said finally. "Family is powerful. But you were my family too, Sophia. When everyone turned against me, I needed you to be the one person who knew me well enough to stand firm. That is what hurts the most, that you thought me capable of something so against everything I am." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. There is nothing I can say to make that right. Do you think? Is there any chance for us to try again? To rebuild?" The question hung between us, heavy with implication. A year ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now I knew better. Some things once broken cannot be put back together the same way. I said gently. "I will always care for you, Sophia. But trust is like glass. The cracks remain visible even after it is repaired." I think we would both always see those cracks. The family fallout was extensive. Natalie's relationship with Taylor was fully exposed, destroying any pretense that her accusations were anything but calculated. Sophia's parents reached out with lengthy apologies, accepting full responsibility for believing the worst without proper evidence. James was more reluctant, still struggling with the idea that his sister had fabricated something so damaging, but eventually acknowledged that he had been wrong about me. Natalie herself became isolated from the family. The court-mandated public retraction forced her to admit her lies, though she framed it as a misunderstanding rather than the deliberate destruction it was. Last I heard, she and Taylor had moved to Chicago, away from the scandal they had created. My own healing journey was gradual but steady. Therapy helped me process the trauma of being falsely accused and abandoned by those I trusted. I found a new job at a smaller tech company where the owner himself, once the subject of false rumors, gave me a chance to rebuild my career. I made new friends who knew my story from the beginning and never doubted my character. Learning to trust again was perhaps the hardest part. Every new relationship, friendship or otherwise, began with a seed of doubt. Would this person stand by me if something went wrong? Would they believe in me when it counted? Over time, I developed healthier boundaries and a keener sense of who deserved my trust. Sophia and I eventually settled into a respectful friendship. We were not meant to be partners anymore. Too much had happened. But the love we once shared transformed into something different, yet still meaningful. When she started dating again about a year after our divorce was finalized, I found I could genuinely wish her happiness. As for me, I recently began dating someone new, a woman named Julia, who works as an art therapist. Our relationship is built on complete honesty and direct communication. I told her my story early on, and her response was compassion without pity. With her, I am learning that vulnerability does not have to mean weakness. The most profound lessons from this ordeal came gradually through reflection and time. I learned that truth does eventually surface, though the journey may be painfully long. I discovered that fighting for your integrity is always worthwhile, even when the odds seem insurmountable. I accepted that some relationships cannot be repaired, and that moving forward sometimes means leaving the past truly behind. Perhaps most importantly, I found strength in myself I never knew existed, the kind of resilience that comes only from having everything stripped away and still finding reasons to continue. In losing what I thought defined me, my marriage, career, reputation, I discovered who I truly was beneath all those external markers. Today I am stronger, wiser, and more at peace than I could have imagined during those dark days after the accusation. I am grateful for those who stood by me, Anthony, Diana, and the few friends who never wavered. I am even thankful in a complicated way for the experience itself, for showing me both the depths of human cruelty and the heights of human courage. To anyone facing false accusations, I want you to know that survival is possible. The road is long and painfully difficult, but your truth matters. Hold on to it fiercely, gather evidence patiently, and never give up the fight to reclaim your name. Justice may be delayed, but with persistence and courage it need not be denied. The question I leave you with is this: how do you rebuild trust in yourself and others after experiencing such profound betrayal? If you have faced false accusations or betrayal in your own life, share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is still struggling. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming injustice, and share with someone who might need to hear that truth eventually prevails. Thank you for listening. And remember, your character is defined not by what others say about you, but by how you respond when facing adversity.